Hey guys.
So we're going to be talking for part 3 of our literary analysis.
We're gonna be talking about Macbeth, and we're gonna choose like moments with the text that display his inner dialogue that relate to our questions we had laid out. So our first question is two specific moments from the text that portray the nature of the character's inner dialogue. So in Act 1, Scene 3, Macbeth says, "If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair?" This is after he hears the witch's prophecy. Macbeth begins to fantasize about becoming king, but is horrified at the idea of murder. His inner dialogue, he's conflicted and fearful. He's tempted by ambition, but he recoils his own dark thoughts. Like, he doesn't want to do anything about it because he's loyal to Scotland, he's a loyal warrior. And it shows that Macbeth is not yet corrupted. He's disturbed by the idea of killing Duncan and feels moral hesitation.
Yeah, okay. And then in Act 1, Scene 7, Macbeth says, "If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly." And he's debating with himself before killing King Duncan. And for like his inner dialogue, it's like him rationalizing, cautious, and he's like morally troubled. And this shows like Macbeth's weighs the consequences of murder both in this life, justice, guilt, revenge, and the afterlife. His ambition clashes with his conscience.
And then in Act 5, Scene 5, Macbeth says tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So he's going that big long speech because everything's falling apart and it's almost the end. He also says life's but a walking shadow. This is after Lady Macbeth dies and his own growing despair. Like, he's realizing everything around him is crumbling. It's the end of his reign. And he doesn't want that because Macbeth is very prideful and full of ambition. He's nihilistic. I found that word the other day. It means like no, like you think there's nothing worth living for. He's numb, he's hopeless, and it shows that Macbeth has become emotionally empty. He sees life as a meaningless and is resigned to his fate.
Okay, so then we're gonna move on to the next, and it says, show how the character's inner narrative develops over the course of the text. Does it evolve, devolve, and why? So Macbeth's inner narrative devolves over the course of the play. At the beginning, he is a loyal and honorable warrior with a strong moral compass, but as the story progresses, his internal thoughts become increasingly corrupted by ambition, guilt, paranoia, and despair. And we're going to give you a breakdown of how and why his inner dialogue changes.
So in Act 1, he's very conflicted and moral. He says, "If good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair?" He's shocked by his own dark thoughts about killing Duncan, and he fears the idea of murder and is torn between his ambition and his morality as a warrior. And he values honor and loyalty, and the witch's prophecy tempts him, but his conscience holds him back from doing anything.
Yeah, okay, and then also in Act 1, Scene 7, he's morally struggling, and he says, "I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only," and then mentions his vaulting ambition in his soliloquy. And the nature is Macbeth is deeply aware that his only motivation for murder is ambition, and he lists many reasons not to kill Duncan, but is ultimately persuaded by Lady Macbeth. And his ambition begins to outweigh his values. His inner conflict is still strong, but he's moving towards the decision that contradicts his morals.
In Act 2, he's haunted and hallucinating. He says, "This is a dagger which I see before me." This is right before he's about to kill King Duncan, and he's like seeing this floating knife in the air, and he's like, it's meant to symbolize how he's like gonna murder him, and it's like pointing him in the direction of his room. He's losing his grip on reality. He hallucinates and is driven by anxiety and guilt even before the murder happens. And the pressure and anticipation of the crime begins to distort his thoughts. His inner world becomes unstable.
Yeah. And then in Act 3, he becomes paranoid and calculating. And he says, "To be thus is nothing, but to be safely thus." So Macbeth becomes obsessed with protecting his power, and he plans Banquo's murder without involving Lady Macbeth, which kind of shows like his increasing independence, but like also like his further reliance on like the dark forces of the witches, as now his only motivation is to keep hold of the throne and the power that he obtained through committing regicide. And then the guilt of killing Duncan turns into fear of losing the throne. His ambition has now overtaken his conscience.
He's scared because he's like, if I kill Duncan and I get taken over, this is all for nothing. I just killed him for no reason, and my fate is back in like God's hands instead of his own. In Act 5, he's numb and nihilistic. He says tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. I really like this quote because it really shows his falling apart of reality. Macbeth is emotionally numb after Lady Macbeth's death. He expresses that life is meaningless, like he's feeling nihilistic about everything. Like he's like, well, there's no point living if everything I love is gone. And after a series of violent actions, his inner self is drained of hope or fear. He no longer sees purpose in anything, not even power.
Yeah. Okay, and then this brings us to our final question. It says, determine whether the character's inner narrative is healthy or harmful to both self and others based on the research you have conducted earlier, and then evidence from the text. So Macbeth's inner narrative is harmful both to himself and to others, and it becomes increasingly destructive as the play progresses. His internal thoughts, fueled by unchecked ambition and guilt, drive him to commit terrible actions that not only destroy his own well-being, but also cause suffering and death to those around.
Okay, these are some reasons for harm to self. We'll go over a couple of them. So the first one is psychological breakdown. When he's seeing the dagger, he says, "This is a dagger which I see before me," and he's hallucinating a bloody dagger before killing Duncan, showing that his inner thoughts are disturbing his mental health. And his mind is already showing signs of instability. The pressure of his ambition and moral conflict cause anxiety, fear, and hallucinations.
And then for number 2 of harm to self, so guilt and emotional collapse. So he says, "Oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife." So Macbeth feels tortured by the idea that Banquo's heirs will take his crown. His thoughts are consumed by fear and paranoia he cannot resist, which shows how his inner narrative is mentally exhausting and harmful.
And number 3 for this one is hopelessness and nihilism. He says life is but a walking shadow, and after hearing of Lady Macbeth's death, he reflects that life is meaningless. His inner self is completely broken. He has lost hope, joy, and purpose. His internal narrative has led him to despair. Okay, guys, we're gonna come back to our main point.
Okay, so where were we?
Harm to others.
Okay, so harm to others. So our first point is murder of King Duncan. So, this is in Acts 1, Scene 7. So Macbeth says, "I am settled and bent up, each corporal agent to this terrible feat." So Macbeth decides to kill Duncan despite knowing it's wrong. And his inner conflict is resolved in favor of ambition. This decision sets off a chain of violence that harms the entire kingdom.
Oh, our second one for harm to others is the killing of Banquo and Macduff's family. So Macbeth says, "Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight." Is that the first scene of Act 3? It's like the one before he's gonna go kill him. And he's basically saying, well, if you're gonna go to heaven, we're gonna find out tonight. Mm-hmm. He arranges Banquo's murder and later the slaughter of Macduff's innocent family because they did nothing wrong to him, but he's just killing because he's scared of losing power. And his inner thoughts have become cold and ruthless. His fear of losing power leads him to destroy innocent lives and also chickens. So.
And then, so in conclusion, his harm to self is Macbeth's inner narrative causes mental instability, guilt, paranoia, and ultimately emotional numbness. And then harm to others, his thoughts drive him to betray friends, murder an innocent, and plunge Scotland into chaos.
So in conclusion, Shakespeare presents Macbeth's internal world as a powerful force, but when he's corrupted by ambition and fear, it becomes deadly. His harmful inner narrative is what transforms him from a noble warrior into a tragic villain.
Okay, now we're gonna do a really epic thing for you, just for you.
Just wait.
Just wait. Okay. Okay, this is our rap, and it's called Burning Crown. Wait, I scrolled too far. It's called Burning Crown.
Burning Crown.
Okay.
Here you go. It started in the dark with thunder and rain. 3 witches in the mix, messing with his brain. Thane of Glom, Thane of Cawdor, king to be. Macbeth heard the words, now he can't break free. What?
Went home with hunger, dreaming of the throne, but he couldn't do it, not all on his own. Lady Anne whispered, "Till we proceed, if you want that crown, you gotta open the gate."
Ambition burns, it's a deadly spark. Lights up your path, but it follows you dark. He rose so fast, now he's fallen slow. Macbeth lost his soul just to steal the show. One kill, 2, now it's spiral time. Paranoia in his head, guilt is his rhyme. Banquo's ghost at the feast, blood on the floor. He's looking at the door like, who's next in the war?
Macduff's a threat, so he strikes his home. Even kids in the crossfire, he's called to the bone. No peace, no sleep, just fear in his eyes. He wears the crown, but the kingdom cries.
Ambition burns, it's a deadly spark.
Lights up your path, but it leaves you dark.
He rose so fast, now he's fallen slow. Macbeth lost his soul just to steal the show. From hero to villain in a heartbeat's turn. The fire he lit now starts to burn. Out, out, brief candle, life fades to black. He ran towards power, never looked back.
So watch what you wish when you chase that crown. It's a long way up and a hard fall down. Macbeth had the drive, but the cost is steep. Now he lies in the silence, too dark, too deep.
Ambition cuts like a blade at night. You might win the crown, but you'll lose the fight.
Hope you liked it!
Thank you, you're like this.